Okay, good morning everybody. We are going to pick up from the Mishnah Kuf Tezayin Amud Bais. We're going to try to get all the way till Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Bais. This week we're going to be discussing a lot about Bnei Slavcha at length and Nachlas Eretz Yisrael. So let's jump right into the Mishnah. Bnei Slavcha Notlu Gimel Chalakim Benachla. The daughters of Slavcha, they ended up getting 3 different chalakim. We're going to see there's even more than that. There's 4, some say 5. But the Bnei Slavcha got 3 chalakim in the Nachla. What did they get? Chelek Havi and Shahayim Yaitz Mitzrayim. We're going to see that the Mishnah is going like the Tana holds. The Chalukas Eretz Yisrael is the people that left Mitzrayim. Another chelek they got, the Chalkim Achiv Benichsei Chefer. Now Tzlavcha's father was Chefer. Now Tzlavcha died. We're going to see that the Banais were taining to Moshe Rabbeinu that L'chayra they should get the Nachla from. They learned it from Yibum. They said Ilo Haya Ben. There would have been Yibum. Now that there's no Ben, Lami Gara Shem Avinu. So that was their taina to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they ended up getting the 3 chalakim. The first chelek was the chelek Avian, because he was left Mitzrayim. Another chelek was the Zayda, Chefer. V'shahaya Bechar, and since Slavchad was the Bechar, therefore he's going to get Naito Shnei chalakim. So our Mishnah is telling us Chidushim in every piece. Ba'etzem, the Gemara is going to say that there was an uncle that the Banei Slavchad also were Yairish. And the reason why our Mishnah told us dafka these 3 things is to bring 3 chidushim. One is Yaitz Mitzrayim is Chalka Aretz. Another nakuda is that Bas Haben, a daughter of a son, has the same schusim as a son. Therefore they get Yairish and the brothers. And the third nakuda is a Bechar, even though he doesn't get Ra'oi. Chalukas Eretz Yisrael was considered Eretz Yisrael's muchzekesi liyaitz Mitzrayim, and therefore they got Pi Shnayim. Now, Bechlal, the whole reason why we even mention Ibn Slavcha, the Rishbam says, because we learned the Kuf Tez Vav, Amad Aleph, that Kol Yaitze Yerecha Shel Ben comes before the brothers. Therefore, this is our sugya, that the Bnei Slavcha wanted to come before the brothers to get their father's chusim. So let's jump right into the Gemara, Kuf Yazayin Amad Aleph. Tanan, our Gemara's command to Amar, Liyaitz Mitzrayim Neschal Ka'aretz, is going like the man the Amar holds Yaitz Mitzrayim, the Tanya. How do we know this? Since it says in the pasuk, after the census of Klal Yisrael says, L'shemes matis avaisam yinchalu, we should give it to these people that left. Elamani Mekayim Zoktimara. What does it say in the pasuk also over there? It says in Bamidbar, a little psukim earlier, 2 psukim earlier, it says La'ela Tichala Ka'aretz benachla. And that the Gemara answers La'ela. Just like when you go through the Misparim, if you look through the census of Klal Yisrael, the only people that we mentioned in the Torah that we counted was only someone 20 and above. So too, to tell us that in this scenario, that dafka, if you were Yaitz Mitzrayim, you were 20 years old, that's when you get a chalukah, that's when you get a schus. Otherwise, you had no schus in the land. That is Shita Rabbi Yishir, Rabbi Yonis and Aimer. The second Shita is Levaya Aretz Neschalka Aretz. The people entering Eretz Yisrael, they're the ones who got the Chelek. Scheiner says La'ela Techalak Aretz. Leben Achel, like it says in the pasuk clearly, that the people La'ela. And right after the sentence, and right after it says the Pekudah B'nai Yisrael, there were 600 and 1,000, etc. That's when it says La'ela Techalka Aretz. Dr. Shbam Amal Levaya Aretz Neschalka. Okay, La'ela Techalak Aretz. Elamani Mekayim, what are you going to do with the pasuk? It says L'shemes matas avaisim inchalu. Why does it say that in the Torah? And that's Zaktik Gemara Meshuna Nachlazu Mikol Nachloi Shabaylam. It's this Yerusha is different than any other Yerusha in the Welt. Shekol Nachl Shabaylam, and every Yerusha in the Welt Chayin Yarshem Mason. The way it works is Ruvain is Yarsh's father when he's nifter. So Dafka the Chaim is Yarshem Mason. However, here it worked Punkt Fakert. The Khan Mason Yarshem Chaim. Over here, the people that were Nifted, they were Yerush. And the Rishbam says, he explains, for example, let's say Reuben and Shimon left the land. Reuben had 10 sons, Shimon had 1 son. Now they got there to Yisrael. They both got a chelak, leilad, chalak art, so they both got chalakim. So one family got 10. The family with 10 sons got each son got a portion, and the other one got 1. However, what happened is, since the other pasuk comes to tell us that you go back up the Mesim Yershim Chaim. So the Zayd is a Yerush, the father's a Yerush, and now that the father's a Yerush, it comes back down as a Yerusha. So what happens is you end up taking all the pieces of the pie, throwing it back to the father, and then coming right back in return. However, the pie ended up getting split from 10 pieces at 1, from 11, it comes out the son that had 1 is going to get 5.5 chalakim, and the 10 sons are going to split, they have to split all the other 5.5. And Zok the Gemara, Amir Rebbe, I'll give you an example. L'shnei achin kahanim. So it's very interesting that the Rashbam says, v'hisnu beineim lachlik. So they made a tonight to be chaylik. So you have to know over here, l'chayr, there was no tonight. So the ayin taisus, he brings them from the Rivad, there's exeris akasuf, that we're going to say this. Why? Because we have two psukim. Therefore we're going to have to say that that's the halacha from these two psukim, that meisim yarshim Chaim. But em shchol mashal ma davadayim l'shnei achi, you have two brothers, kahanim shayu ber achas. So Reuben and Shimon the kahanim, they're in the city. L'echad yeshli ben echad. One has one son. The echad yeshli shnei banim, one has two sons. V'hochel legarin, they go to pick up the truma. Zeh shli ben echad, noitu chelak echad. However, zeh shli shnei banim, noitu shnei chalakim. But since he sent them, and there was a tonight that they're going to split it, what do they do? Machzir netzela vihen. It's a shaila vihen. If you look at the Taisus on top, he says etzel avia vihen. Who's dafka the grandfathers v'chayzin v'chalkin be. Shav. So that is Shitas Rabbi Yainasa and Levaya Aretz and Schalka Aretz and Shitas Rabbi Yishiyaz L'Yaitz Mitzrayim. Now we're going to have a third Shita. One Kuf Yadzayin Amad Aleph Rabbi Shimon Lazar Aimer La'elu Ve'elu Nischalka Aretz. We're actually in Kuf Yadzayin Amad Bais. La'elu Ve'elu Nischalka Aretz. The Hainu L'Yaitz Mitzrayim and the Vaya Aretz. He's not handling it. It has nothing to do with Chazara. Rather, they both, whether you left Mitzrayim, then you got whether you came. Kedei L'Kayim Kedei L'Kayim Shnei Mikrois Ha Lolu. Now, so it comes out, there's another sheet that our Mishnah kashtim with. And that's why if you look, there's Shmam is with this. That's why if you started the Gemara says, Tanan Kaman Dam L'Yaitz Mitzrayim. Not that it's daf going like Rabbi Yishia, because our Mishnah, B'nai Slavcha, could also go with Shitas of Shimon ben Elazar. As long as you have a Shita, as long as you hold this Yaitz Mitzrayim involved. So, La'elu Ve'elu Nischalka Aretz. Why? Kedei L'Kayim Shnei Mikrois HaLolu. Ha-Ketzad. Ha-Yam Yaitz Mitzrayim. If you left Mitzrayim again, you have to be 20 years old. Noito Chalka Yaitz Mitzrayim. Hayim Vayaretz, Naito Chalka in Vayaretz. Mikan. Let's say Mikan. If the Hainu is Dr. Ishbam, it's very not practical really to say that you survived the Midbar and you were that old, because most of them died. The Rashbam does bring up Pshat that you could be talking about someone who's older than 60. He says La Milsihi. He doesn't like that Pshat. Rather, the Pshat is he want to say that, for example, Reuben had a son that he was 20 years old when he left Mitzrayim. He was a ben chaf. He was 20 years old when he left, therefore he has a schos. And then in the midbar he had kids. And then he was nifter. So the kids in the midbar yarish their father as he yaitz mitzrayim. That's one chelik. And they themselves, now that they're already over 20 years old, when they're by Yaretz, they're going to also get a schos in chalukas Eretz Yisrael. So by mikan noitel chelkoi umikan. On that Zaktamar Vaitim Miraglim. Regarding the Meraglim, even though they had sons that came into Eretz Yisrael, they all died, the Meraglim we all know. However, their sons did not get the schus of the Meraglim. Rather, what happened with their schusim? Yeshua, Vekalev, with the last two spies, Notlu, Chelkom. They were the ones who ended up getting the chelik and the Meraglim. What about the Mislainim, the people that complained? Va'adas Kairach, the people, the 250 were people that were with Kairach. Loi haya lahem chelik ba'aretz. Rather, their sons, Habanim and the Meraglim, Dr. Ishbam, who got it not only Dafka B'schus Avi Evian, their father's father, Ub'schus Avi Imaiseyan, their maternal grandfather. Now, again, this Mahaluch, Dr. Ishbam, Haitana, is Dafka going like what? Le'yaitz Mitzrayim Nischalka Aretz. It's like the Maskana. Now that we have the Maskana, we can be going like Rosh Lazar that says, Elu Nischalek Ha'aretz. Zok the Gemara, my mashma, where do you see in the pasuk the high l'shemes matis avaisam when it says in the pasuk l'shemes matis avaisam it's b'yaitz mitzrayim ksiv dom l'shvatim kamala. Maybe it's going. You know what avaisam? Avaisam means the yud beis b'nei Yaakov and nothing to do with the yaitz mitzrayim. So how do we know we're talking about the yaitz mitzrayim? On that Zok the Gemara, the ksiv it says in the pasuk, which is a pasuk which is vad talking about yaitz mitzrayim. V'nasati oisel lachem. This is in the beginning of Shemais. V'nasati oisel lachem. My rosh ani Hashem. Yerushi lachem. That the Rebbeinu Shalom promised they were going to get a chel in the aretz. Ma'avesechem. There, but the yaitz mitzrayim kamalu. So it's clear we have a pasuk that the yaitz mitzrayim are going to get a chelik in the land. Siman. We have a siman. We're going to see 6 different akudais. There are papas going to ask Abaya. We have Larav. We're going to see with the Bnei Slavchad, also the Bnei Yosef that complained. Ichbal, Menashe, and Yechashiv. The first kasha Rav Papa asked Abaya, according to the Mandam, Yaitz Mitzrayim, according to Rabbi Yeshia. Or you could say Reb Shimon, or you could say Rabbi Yeshia, or you could say Rabbi Shimon Lezer. Then we understand The Hainu l'Rav Taber Nachalasa is going to be in a case. For example, a person left Mitzrayim with 10 sons. And then by the time he got into Eretz Yisrael, he only had 5. So it comes out, l'Rav Taber Nachalasa. He left with 5, so each son got a piece. And then they ended up with, they left with 10. So they end up with 10 portions. They only ended up with 5 coming into Eretz Yisrael. So they divided the 10 portions into 5, which ended up being much higher. Then we can understand the Rav Taber Nachalasa. Elamai Taber Nachalasa is the Punk Fakert case. You left Mitzrayim when you were 5, so you only got 5 portions. But by the time you pulled up to Eretz Yisrael, so the Kasha is Daf Yomi Rabbi Yishia, you had what? You had 10 Chalakim, so you ended up having to split it. That's what it means. Lamait Tamit Nachalasa. Now on Kuf Yud Chesed and Aleph, Elaman da Amar, according to the man da Amar that holds Lebaye Aretz, my Rav Taber Nachalasa. What's it mean, Rav Taber Nachalasa? And that is Zaktamara. Kasha. Lamaisa Kasha. Dahainu Lidi Don Kasha. We don't know how to explain it. This pasuk. Now you can't tell us that maybe it's going to be telling us in a scenario we could have the Rav Taber Nachalasa like we explained in Amud Aleph on Kuf Yud Zayin where you have a Chazara. Mesim Yoshim Chaim. We gave this exact case that it goes up and then it comes back down. So it could have the Rav Taber Nachalasa. And that Rashbam says you don't need that because the Chayra already says Le'el T'chalak Aretz. You don't need a pasuk to tell us that. The second kasha Papa asked Abai Bamler Papa Abai Bishman the Mandam Yitzim Mitzrayim Hainu the Kotzvacham B'nai Slavchot. That's why the daughters of Slavchot had a taino. It makes sense. The father left Mitzrayim Slavchot. El Mandam Vayaretz. According to Mandam who holds Vayaretz, I might Slavchon. What are the B'nai Slavchot have a taino? Lesser delishkol. There's Slavchot never entered Eretz Yisrael. So what is the taino? Loihu. He didn't get in the Loyitzim Reichot. So how do we understand it? Allah Zok the Gemara, we're talking about le Chazara. You're going to tell us the case is Chazara, but lito b'nechse chefer. I knew that since the Amar Baya Aretz holds a Chazara, you could explain that the taina is chefer. Chefer, which is the grandfather, he had a chelik. And then what? It went down to Hainu. Chefer left, let's just give an example. Let's say Chefer had 10 sons. Chefer had 8 sons, 5 sons, 6 sons, whatever the number is. He left with a certain amount of sons. Now, the sons, Slavchad was nifter. We're going to see there was also uncles that died, but Slavchad was nifter. The other sons, let's say 5 sons entered Eretz Yisrael. Those 5 sons that entered Eretz Yisrael, they all got a piece of Bayaretz. But since we hold a Chazara, those 5 sons ends up bringing it to who? The Chefer Midin Chazara. Now Chefer has those 5 pieces, those 5 portions. Let Slavchad be Yairish it, and therefore that was the taina of the B'nais, the B'nais of Slavchad. Zok the Gemara, Bisham Alaman Damar Liyotzim Mitzrayim. Hainu de Katzavcham B'nei Yosef. The Chsiv, what happened to B'nei Yosef? They ended up growing very quickly. Their Shavit. In the beginning, when they left, there were 32,200, and they all the way climbed all the way to 52,700. If you look at the Psukim, it's a very high percentage of that they ended up going much higher, much more people. So they were complaining. They said we should get a bigger piece. Like it says in the pasuk, why are you giving us such a piece like everybody else? Where I'm Rav. Why are they complaining? If anything, right now they're much more than everybody else, and each one that enters the land is going to get a piece. More answers. Mishum, Tfalim, the Havin, and Fishlu. Very nice. When every population grows, there's also Yisaimim. There's also people that are not 20 years old and they didn't have a father. Therefore, that was the taino of the Bnei Yosef. From here you can learn from Bnei Yosef and Slavchad. Loi have echad. There was no one that didn't get a portion. The Loi Shakul. If there was Takason who didn't get a portion, he boiled the mitzvah. He should have complained. V'chitema, you're going to tell me that Tzavach. V'chitema, that Tzavach. You're going to tell me maybe there was a ma'aser that someone did complain. V'ahani kasvikra. V'ahani kasvikra that Tzavach. V'layani like kasvikra. The Hainu Davka B'nai Slavcha, we see where they ended up, Moshe Rabbeinu ended up listening to them. That's what he writes in Torah. And then the Gemara says it can't be. B'nai Yosef, they Taka complained. The Tzavchi V'layahani didn't help the Kasvinu Kra. And there, the Pasuk Taka mentions it. So you see, even though a person, the L'chaira, didn't get anything out of it, the Torah still mentions it. Zok Dabaya, Elamai, there was no one. And the Taka complained. Mara says, no, Yosef, the reason why it says it because there was an Eitzah Tova. Hasam Eitzah Tova Kamash Milan. That Yeshua answered him. Yeshua said, I can't give you more Nachla. I'm not going to steal from the other Shvatim. I can't do that. However, I can give you Eitzah Tova. Now the Yam Rav, I'll give you Eitzah Tova. That what? The Baile Le'inish, Le'izdurim Me'ena Bisha, you should be careful from evil eye, Ayin Hara. The Ayin of the Kamal Yeshua, the Chsiv says, Yeshua, Im Am Rav. If you takam ravata ale im aim. Ravata then alelech cha hayara, go hide yourself in the forest. Amalam lechu vichbau atzmim biyarim, go send to the forest. Shaloi tishloit bachem ayin hara. On a basic side, we learned in the Daf Yomi, we wanted to say that the reason why ayin hara, what's so bad about ayin hara is the Rebbeinu Shalom can't give somebody shefa while it's causing yenim tsar. One kufiyat chesem base. So on that we see that it was only Eitz Taiva that he told them he shouldn't have ayin hara. So what did they answer? The Bnei Yosef answered, Amrulei, Anan Mizar di Yosef, the Loishalta Ba'ene Bisha, we are from the Shevet Yosef, that doesn't have Ayin Hara, Dichsiv, like it says in the Pasuk. Ben Pairas Yosef, the charming son, Yosef ben Pairas Ali Ayin, what do you, V'amar Avavo, Al Tikri Ali Ayin, rather, Ela Oila Ayin, they go above the eyes, and therefore the Hainu, the Ayin, is not shaylat in them. Says in the Pasuk, we all know by Malach, Ve'yidgul arrive Bekara Aretz, Ma Dagim Shebayam, just like fish in the water, there's no control of the eyes. Again, that they don't have ayin hara. We said earlier in the Bais of Miraglim, what happened with the chelik of the Miraglim? Not that the sons didn't get it, rather Yeshua v'kalev notlu chelkom. How do we know this? Maybe you're right. Maybe the sons didn't get it, but it got split. It got divided into the pool of rest of Klal Yisrael. Amar Ula Amar Da Amar state in the pasuk v'Yeshua ben Nun v'Kalev ben Yefuna chayu min anashim haim. So my chayu ilim chayu mamsha tells they lived and all the Raglim died. V'Ksiv Karachina already says in the other pasuk v'Loi Naisamem Ish came Kalev ben Yefuna v'Yeshua ben Nun. Elamai chayu. You know what the pasuk saying? Chayu shechalku bechelkam. Instead of going into the pool of Klal Yisrael, rather Kalev ended up getting Kalev. And Yeshua v'Kalev ended up getting the chelik. Mislainim v'adas kayrach lo hayil chelik ba'aretz. Again, we'll continue with the Bais we mentioned earlier. Frak tomorrow, you telling me mislainim v'adas kayrach didn't have chelik? Hava tiny when the Bais says miraglim mislainim v'adas kayrach Yeshua v'Kalev not to chelkom. When it said earlier lo hayil chelik ba'aretz, we understood the what? Very simple. It left and went into the pool of Klal Yisrael. Here it's saying very clearly Yeshua v'Kalev got it. The more answers like kasha. Mar makish mislainim l'raglim. Mar loy makish mislainim l'raglim. If you hold the Yeshua v'Kalev got it, then you make a hekesh to the raglim. Just like the miraglim Yeshua v'Kalev got it, who had in the mislainim. The person doesn't make a hekesh held that went into the pool of Klai. So the Tanya. What happened with Bais Avchan Avinu? This is what the Joshua were learning. Avinu meis b'midbar. When it says Avinu meis b'midbar, what are the Bana saying? Zet slavchan. This it's slavchan. V'hu lahaya b'teicheda. What is that? Adas miraglim. This is adas miraglim. Hana adam l'Hashem elu mislainim. These are the people the elu mislainim. When it says about this kayrach kamar shmoi, so mar makish mislainim l'miraglim. One wants to say since it's all in the same pasuk, therefore you can make a hekesh from the mislainim the miraglim, just like the miraglim got it to it. Then Yeshua v'Kalev going to get the mislainim. Umar loy makish. The Rashbam explains it doesn't say a vav b'techayin how edav anadim. Therefore they didn't make a hekesh. Loy makish mislainim miraglim. The people that hold you are going to tell me that all the Mislainim ended up going to Yeshua v'Kalev. Yeshua v'Kalev, everyone's Mislainim. The Rashbam brings a case. When the whole Klal Yisrael ended up being the Mislainim to a certain degree. So what's it mean that we know that Yeshua v'Kalev didn't get such a big chelik in the land? When I said the Mislainim, I didn't mean the whole Klal Yisrael. I meant Shabbat, this Karech Kamrinon, Dafka, the 250 people that were with Kairach. It's interesting that we bring it down. We're going back to the kasha of Mandam Yotzim Mitzrayim. Well, my that's what Gemara does now. We're going back to this Nakuda. Like it says in the pasuk, Vayiplu Chavle Menashe Asara Shita. Tahainu. It says Hashem Menashe ended up with 10. What's the 10? The Shita Bati Avis. If you look at the pasuk, it says in the pasuk very clearly, Vayil b'nei Menashe. There were 6 families: Aviezer, Chelek, Asriel, Shechem, Chefer, which is the Banit Slavchat, and Shemida. Though and then it says Eilu b'nei Menashe and Yosef. So there's 6 Bati Avis. The Arba Dedu and the 4 of Slavchat. We know the 3 in the Mishnah. We're going to see an uncle. Ha'asar Alamanda B'Aretz. Lachar you only have 8. Tamanyahu. Why? The Havashita, the Shita Be'avetz, the 6 of the Be'avetz, the trade to do, because you don't have the Vaye Aretz. You only have Chefer's Nachla. Frak the Gemara, We only have the Mishnah, which is 3. 3 plus the 6 by the office is Tesavu. Maybe you're going to tell me there was an uncle, we didn't mention it. We said the reason why we didn't mention because there's nothing to do with the Chiddush that we're learning. I'll tell you that there was 2 uncles, the Tanya. Like it says in the pasuk, Nasa in Titalem is Moshe Rabbeinu talking. Nasa in Titalem, what the Rebbeinu Shalom said to do, Zu nachlas avien. Besoich achi avien zu nachlas avi avien. Which is Zaydev avartas nachlas avien lehen zu chelik b'chayr. However, that sheet is Tanakama. Yeah, Lezben Yaakov Aimer av chelik achi avien. Not to even got the uncle Shenemar Nasa in Titain. And the man Damatri Achadabu, the one who holds there was 2 uncles. Havalu, they learned that Ahu Ma'achuzas. Me'achuzas, it says achuzas, it could have just said nos and titam nachvos echavien, elamai ma'achuzas, ma'achuzas nachlo nafka. However, the Rishbam does say that the other man, the Tanakama, didn't want to learn nos and titan, he just learned it's not, you don't, that's a derech, the pasuk to talk, therefore he wasn't derech. V'amalei papa, which is the 6th simon that we had, v'amalei papa la'abaya, kra ma'ika chashiv. What is the pasuk talking about when we're saying, it says that all the brothers got it. What are we handling? If we're counting everybody, even the tefallim, tuvahavu is much more. And why are we mentioning, why are we mentioning bechlal the b'nanois tzlofchad? It says, chavli menashe is asara. So we know there's only 6. Shitahavu. On that, Avada, we're talking about not falling. And the reason why we're mentioning B'nai Slavchad, we're telling us to learn from there, but B'nai Slavchad, that what, like we said in the Mishnah, the Eretz Yisrael is muchzekesli, from the second they left Mitzrayim, even though they never had it. Kamash one, the B'nai Slavchad, natlu chelik b'chayra, almo, Eretz Yisrael muchzekesli. Amamar, we said earlier that the Abanim, the Meraglim, we're talking about the sons of Meraglim, not l'b'schus avi aviyah, u'b'schus avi mesen. Frak Mar Vatani, we have a Bais that says b'schus atman, they got in their own schus, like Hashem. Hakamanda amalei etzim Mitzrayim, so you have to learn they Tafka got it only because of the grandfathers. Hakamanda amalei vayaretz, that's what it means that they got it in their own schus. V'ibas sema hava hala vayaretz. Tainu, they both are going to go l'manda amalei vayaretz. V'like Hashem, depends. Ha da hava ben esrim, so you got your own schus. Ha da hava ben esrim, the only way you were able to get it Lamaisa is by going with the Zayda. And Lamaisa, we could say this Nakuda just to bring out that when it says Hava Alavai Aretz, even though you could say from the Reisha, we're going to learn that Lamaisa, it says earlier, Lamanda Amabaya Liyaitz Mitzrayim Yeshova Kalv Natlu Chelkam. We could say Lamaisa, it's going like the Maskana, like of Shimon Lazar, Hava Alavai Aretz, Hava Liyaitz Mitzrayim, it could go stem with both Shitas. Okay, we said V'shahaya Bechar, Noitel Shnei Chalakim, since he was a Bechar, he got 2 Chalakim. We're talking about Bnei Slavcha, that the Slavcha was a Bechar. Frak the Gemara, why? V'amai Rayu, we're going to learn in Rayu, V'eina Bechar, Noitel B'Rayu K'B'Muchsuk. So how in the world did they get it? Amri V'dam Shmuel, we're talking about it, we're not talking about Karka. B'Yistais, Halim, the Rishbam says Metaltalim. Any Metaltalim, they got it, that's the point, because in the Rishbam says, the reason why he said this island, which is a pegs for the tents, the Vada Lekulan, Ayu Island, everyone had tents, therefore they mentioned it. So the third chelik was only Metaltalim. Meisav Rabbi Yehuda, Ibn Slavcha, not L'dal Chalakim, Scheiner, like it says in the pasuk, V'yiplu Chavle, so the Kashrus from the word Chavle, we all know by Mida B'Chevel, Maidin, we always measure Karka with Chevel. You should have used the different ones in the winter and the summer. Menashe Asara, so it's Mashma Karka. Alam Rabba, the reason is Eretz Yisrael Muchzekasi. When it says V'nasati Yisem Lachem Rasha, the second we gave the Nevi'as, the Rebbeinu Shalom said we're going to get Chelik Eretz Yisrael. It's like we already have it, and therefore you have a din of a Muchzek. Meisvei, Frak the Mar Rabbi Chitko Shimon HaShikmoni Haili Chavim Etamid Rekiva Kacha Shimon HaShikmoni Aimer. That what Yedei Aisha, we're going to see the kasha is really all the way at the end of the Brisa and Bais. We're going through a lengthy Brisa. It's going to ask this kasha telling us on the kasha of Eretz Yisrael Muchzekasi. Frak the Gemara. The Kacha Reb Shimon HaShikmoni Aimer Yedei Hayim Moshe Rabbeinu knew Shebnei Slavcha Yosha saying. When you look at the Chumash, 2 things we see. First, the Rebbeinu Shalom, when Bnei Slavcha had a taina of Lami Gar Shem Avinu, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, you know what, it's a good taina, and let me go ask the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rebbeinu Shalom said, Taka, give them. So Zok the Mar Avada Moshe Rabbeinu knew the Yarshim. He didn't have a shayla. He knew that they're like a son. Okay, more than that, you can learn it from Yibam B'chlal, and the second Mahalach in Rishbam says, so Moshe Rabbeinu knew Tzlavcha Yarshim. He wasn't sure him night lies Chelik B'chayrim Lav. he wasn't sure about the chelik b'chayr or not, and that is, we said that they get a chelik. V'ruisa parshas nachalois l'kasev de Moshe l'shezachu benois slavcha v'nichtav al yadan. If you look at Rashi in Chumash, Rashi's masber, that they were like Yosef, that they cherished Eretz Yisrael. That was the schus that was nichtava al yadan. Another point, the Bais of Yedei Moshe Rabbeinu Shem Mekayshis was b'misa. Shenemar, like it says, he was mechal Shabbos, mechal Masumas. Avaloya Yedeya be'ezu misa yamis, wasn't sure of skila, which is more chomer than chenek. Maybe we should just get chenek. Shenemar avaloya Yedeya be'ezu misa yamis. V'roisa parshas Mekayshis, be'etzim should just write it. Shetikasav Yedei Moshe ela shenis chayiv Mekayshis. To teach you Shemegalgawan Kufya Tasam Bais Schos Aidei Zakid. I know B'nai Slavchot is a schos that you continue to leave over your Yerushas going into your kids. It's not going out. That's a schos. Zoktar Shbam Shabonev Akroivim Yershus Kreveyem V'chayva Ayedei Chayiv, which is skila, which is more chomer. A person rather dies bechenek than getting stoned. Now this is the kasha. What was the shaila of the bechar? What's the shaila of the bechar getting double? It's pashut. Eretz Yisrael is a muchzuk. My answer is no. He gufa kamastapklei. That was the shaila. How do we know now today Eretz Yisrael is muchzekes? Only because what? Because Moshe Rabbeinu asked, what should we do regarding the Bnei Shlachon? And the Rebbeinu said, yeah, give it from the chsiv. Then Sati Oisam. Avada says in the pasuk, "Sati Oisam lachem." My Rasha ani Hashem. I knew either my Rasha can mean to give over, and Yerusha is to get. Yerushi lachem avesechem, which is that he already has it. Dilma shemarishin, they give it, however, ve'einon yarshin. Pashtulei tavayil, the Meister, the Basra says, Yerusha lachem avesechem, umarishin ve'einon marishin. I in the chsiv, like we see by Shiur. We say this every day. Tive'eimoi, you will bring them. Visi te'eimoi. And you will implant them. Bahar nechlascha, and the har of the heritage. Bahar, the mount, to be enu. V'loi namer, it says them. V'loi namer ela tiveinu loi namer. It doesn't say us, ela tiveinu, rather them. Elamed. Shemisnavnim eni yedei manisnavnu. They don't bechlal ma'ina yedin manisnavin. They didn't even realize that they were saying an interesting nevuah that what? They're not going to ever be zeichet to enter the land. It says in the pasuk, we're talking about the Bnei Slavchot. It says in the pasuk, the 5 girls went in front of Moshe Rabbeinu, v'lefnei Elazar Chaim, v'lefnei Nisim, v'chol eida pesach eida leima. Frak the Gemara. After Amdu lefnei Moshe, first they went to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to say, so what? They continued on. V'lo yamru len davar v'amdu lefnei Nisim, v'chol eida. Ela saris emikar v'darsheyu. You have to read the pasuk. No, punk faket darsheyu. Read it lemafreya. Who did they first go to? They first went to the Eidah. Then they went to Nisim. Then they went to Elazar Chaim. Then they went to Moshe. And the Rashbam says, you know why the pasuk says it this way? Because we want Rishon, Chashav. That's why it says, Moshe. Even though in reality, Moshe was the last person that the Bnei Slavchad approached. That's Hushita Divrei Yosha. Abachananoi Moshe Eliezer Bais Medrash Hayu Yoshvit. They're all sitting together. And they asked everybody. So what's the machlekes of Yosha and Abachana? Ma'ikam Mar Sava, which is Abachana Cholkin Kaval Tam Makam Rav. Therefore they went to everybody. Mar Sava, no. And Cholkin, only after that, no choice, they went to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hilchos on the Ma'aseh says Hilchos Cholkin, Hilchos Ein Cholkin. Kasha Hilchos Hilchos. My answer is no. Hilchos like Kasha. Ha de Polik le Rabbi Yikara. Ha de Loi Polik Rabbi Yikara. Whenever you see when a Rabbi gives, kavod, he lets ask my Talmud. Well, let's see what the Talmud has what to say. So in such a case, in that type of scenario, you could give, what do we do? You're chalkin kavod l'talmud b'makom arav. Tana, we said, we have a Bais that says, B'nai Slavchad, they were chachmaniya saying, they were very shrewd. We're going to see they knew when to speak up. Darshani is saying they knew how to learn drushes. And Tzidkani is saying, chachmaniya is saying, why were they chachamim? Shelafi Shah Dibroi. They knew exactly when to give a taina. Moshe Rabbeinu was handling the sugya of Yibum. If you look in the Torah, it never says Achim Yachtab. So then they popped up and they said, if we're like a son, that's why our mother's not doing Yibum. However, if not, this Yabimenu. Miyad, what happened? So that's how we know they're chacham. How do we know they're shani saying show you Imers ilo halo ben? Loi dibarnu. Dahainu, we learned this in the beginning of the parak. How do we know that ben comes before bas? It says vatanya. It says in the pasuk, ein loi ben hayesh loi ben, which is a drasha ben kaidem, and they knew that time. The only time they're asking is because they knew this drasha and said there's no son. Vatanya bas. It says we have a verse that says bas iloi bas. Amar virmiya samim kam bas. You have to erase this, and more than that. The Rishbam says very interesting. He says makshe atzmoi eini yidei lafarshi. Even the makshe didn't know how to explain this. Abai Amar, the taina was a filu haya bas leben loy dibarnu. Even if we would have had a brother that would have left over a daughter, we wouldn't have spoke. How do we know it's Tzidkani? Saying shaloi nisu lahagalan. They waited to marry the chashuvim, the people that were chashuv, even though they were able to marry all the other shvatim. Still, they waited till they found someone that's very chashuv for them. Even the youngest daughter, they had to wait years and years, decades, till they found their right b'sheret. If a person gets married under 20, she could give birth, her child years until where? She could have children until 60 years old. If she gets married, bas esrim, once she's 20, yeledes adar boim. Bas arboim, someone who gets married after 40, shuveni yeledes. So Ella, how do they end up having kids? I'm like, hey, since there were two chais that they're doing the right thing, Nasal and Neski, Yecheved, we're going to see Yecheved was 130 years old. It says in the pasuk, V'yelech ish mi Bais Levi, Vayikach is Bas Levi. We're talking about the second time around, where he ended up marrying the Bas Levi, which we know is Yecheved. For tomorrow, why are we calling it Bas? Kuf Chaf Amad Aleph. After Bas Me'er V'Shleishim Shana, if you go through the psukim, how she's 130, the Rishbam goes by Riches, and we all know Mitzrayim was 210 years, and she was born B'tchilas Mitzrayim. We're going to see that later. She was born mamash with the entrance of Mitzrayim. And Moshe was how old? Moshe was 80 years old when we left. So 210 minus 80 is 130. So we clearly see that she was 130 years old. V'karla Bas. Why do you say Bas? The Omer of Chamer v'Chanina Zu Yechevet. When we had earlier, we're going to see that we had a Shiur later, where if you look at the klal, it says 70, the names. However, if you look at the prat, it's 69. So who is this? She was taka born mamash ben chayim. The cheseva sheyalda isalevi b'mitzrayim diledas mitzrayim. The rasa shalei mitzrayim. So that's how we know clearly she was 130 years old. V'amai karla bas. So then we're going back. So what's taka b'shay? You call it a bas. Amri vidam bar svidam v'lamed. Shenoldu bas simani naira. She ended up coming young again. Nisadin abasar. Her skin became tender. Nispashru akmatim. All her wrinkles went away. V'chaz hayayifilim kaima. We're talking about the second marriage when she went right back. It says vayikach, Amar of Yehuda Berzida Melamich Asal Maisel Kuchen. Imamish made it a brand new marriage. Hoshiva Bafirian. He put it like what we have today by the Bedek in the college here. The Aryan Miriam Misharim Lifanaz. They were singing away Malchisharis Amrim Aim Habanim Semecha. They all rejoice. Mother of the sons all rejoice. Now, some want to say that the reason why they were singing therefore they were so happy. We're going to see below Manan Akasu of Derech Lusan, Vekan Derech Achmasa. Dahainu, if you look at the psukim, when we're talking about the marriage of Bnei Slavchat, you clearly see it says V'tiyena Machla, Sirza, Chalka, Malka V'naya. Bnei Slavchat. And it says, it makes sense to say that that's how they were all, that was based on the age, because in those days especially, a person married based on age. You waited till the older one got married. So lahalam no nakasa dakulusan. Mekan, however, derech chachmasam by Moshe Rabbeinu, when they asked him, we asked the derech chachmas. Elei Rabami, Damar Rabami, be yeshiva holech acher hachma dahainu bein ledin or Torah. That's when you go acher chachma. B'mesiba for mishte hu adin nesuin zakter shbam holech acher zekna. Amar Bashi, who he has to be the maflik. It has to be mamish, not just a tiny bit. Who the maflik b'chachma. That's when who the maflik b'zikna. It can't just be that you're a little older than them. Tana deber b'shmol b'nai slavchad shkulais hayu. Be'etzim they were equal. Shenem, like it says in the pasuk. V'tiyana. Why did it say they became? Havaya achas l'kulan, to tell us that they were all equal b'chlal. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel b'nai slavchad hutru. Hutru linase lechol hashvatim. Ba'atzim Bnei Slavchan had a schos, they were able to marry everyone. Scheiner says, L'tay b'nem tiyel l'noshim. Elamani mekayim, what do you be mekayim with the pasuk? Ach l'mishpachas matem v'yen tiyel l'noshim. It was eight tzitayv scene, it was only eight tzitayv to do that. Hakosu shalei nasu ella lahagin lahen. Ma'asiv Rabbah says, Emor alayim la'aysan ha'oim din ar Sinai. And then it says, L'dar seichem, elu daris haboim. So it's very clearly that it says, Im nema avos, lama nema banim. Im nema banim, lama nema avos. You know what? B'nei sheyesh ba'avos, mashein b'banim, yesh ba'banim, mashein ba'avos. Ba'avos, it says, Huay mevechol bas, yoyreshes nachla. It's coming to tell us, v'harba mitzvahs nitztavu banim, shaloi nitztavu avos. For example, mitzvahs of tluyas ba'ar, it's dafka the banim head. However, like for example, truma, ma'isach, chala, orla, v'chulei, Be'harba mitzvahs nitzav b'banim shaloi nitzav b'avos. Ha b'nei sheish b'avos shein b'banim. Be'yesh b'banim shein b'avos. Hutzach loim b'avos. Hutzach loim b'banim. Ktani mis. It says b'avos loim b'v'chol bas. Yereshes nachla clearly says that chol bas yereshes nachla. Who meisel whom farkla? No, you have to read it lebar mibnois slavcha. That when it says chol bas yereshes nachla, it's not going on the b'noi slavcha. Amamar ba'avis uayim. It says ba'avis v'chol ba'as yereshas nachlas. B'vavis in b'banim loy. So tomorrow, my mashma, where are we coming from to say this? That this pasuk is Tafka talking about in that dar. I only had this halacha. Amar Rav Amakra says zeh ha davar. Regarding b'lei savcha, davar zeh lo yenog nohu elo b'dar zeh. Amar Rav Zutular b'ashel ma'ata. Zeh ha davar regarding the shchuti chutz where it's aveira. To be shaykhet, it says in the pasuk, Zeh hadavar asher tziv Hashem leimor, ish b'nei Yisrael, asher yishcha shor chesed v'chulei. That's also going to tell me dafka that dar. Hachanami delay yenog ela b'dar zeh. Shani asim, it says at the end of the pasuk, le dai raisam. Since over there it says, v'lei yizbechu, it says chukas aylam tia zayis lachem, le dai raisam. On kuf chavam Bais. Zok Gemara regarding a neder. It says Zeh hadavar the Rashi Matos, which is an neder chanami delay yenog ela b'dar zeh. They know there they have Gzer Shava. Hu Yalav Zeh Mahasam. That we're going to make Gzer Shava. The Hainu. Just like by Faris Nedarim Tishchut Echut. Just like over there it says Dairais. Hachinam over here we're going to learn it for Dairais. So Zok Gemara. Hi Nami. So why don't we say by the Savas Nachlo Lev Zeh Mahasam? Why by Savas Nachlo we don't say it should be like Shut Echut Dairais? Hi, my Zaktamar. Bisham Hasam, it's Gzer Shava. You need a Gzer Shava by what? By Shchut Chutz and Nadar. You need Gzer Shava. We're going to see in a second why. Hachalamai Itzrich, Lishta Kromines, the Patrick is thick wise. Vanayadano, we would know the Ledairais who. Therefore, we clearly learn that it's Tafka for that dar. So, what is the Gzer Shava? My Gzer Shava, the Tanya Nemer Khan regarding by Neder. It says Zeh hadavar. V'nemer la'alon regarding shchuti chutz, it says Zeh hadavar. Ma la'alon, just like over there in Aaron Avon v'chol Yisrael. Afkan, so over here Aaron Avon v'chol Yisrael. Uma kan regarding another Roshi Matas. Af la'alon Roshi Matas. Omamar ma la'alon Aaron Avon v'chol Yisrael. Afkan Aaron Avon v'chol Yisrael. V'may hilchasa. What's the point of saying this? Amar Acho Bar Yaakov to tell us loymar shewach hafaris nedarim. It's good enough. B'shleisha yotis. So the Marva Rashi Hamatik Sibbe. It says Rashi Hamatik sounds like clearly they need a Rashi Hamatik, not just a hedyet. We're going to see later with Dafka B'Yachin Mumcha Hachinami over here. If it's a Mumcha, it's even a Yach B'Yachin Mumcha. Uma Kan just like another Rashi Hamatik. Afla Allah Meshuti Chutz Rashi Hamatik. L'may Hachasam Rav Sheishes Leimar to tell us Sheyei Sheila Behekdish. Just like there's a Sheila B'Nedarim. Who are din by hekdesh if someone was sheichet b'chutz, a shchut chutz, that the halach is he's chayv kares, but he goes to the chacham is matir him, it comes out b'chlal, he's not chayv kares because he never really did a shchut chutz. Frak the Mara lebeisham adamri in sheila b'hekdesh. The Tanam we have a machlokes beisham beisil. Beisham ayimim hekdesh tos hekdesh. Ubeisil ayimim eina hekdesh. The Rishbam says a case. For example, a person says if a white char, let's say, a white char is going to come out. It's going to be hegdish, comes out of the room, and the Maisa came out of black. There's a shayla if it's hegdish or not. The Beis Shammai says it's hegdish. Bais Hillel says it's not hegdish. They learn it from Psukim Ein Rishban. So the Chayra Zev is according to Beishamai Ma'avdile. What is he going to do? Zeh Hadavar. The Gemara answers Zeh Hadavar. He's going to learn Zeh Hadavar not as Gzer Shava. To tell us Zafka Zeh Hadavar the Shchut Chutz Mivoil Ala Sheichutu Chayiv. Dafka and Shchita Ve'ena Chayiv Ala Meiluk Melika, which is killing with your fingernail. That's when you're not Chayiv. And Zeh Hadavar for the Gemara Zeh Hadavar. What is he going to do with that? Zeh Hadavar the Roshei Hamatas Mivoile LeChacham Mater Ve'ein Baal Mater and Baal Mefer Ve'ein Chacham Mefer. Which means to say is the chiluk between Bezdin and a husband is that a Bezdin, what they do is when a person says a neder, we have to say, if you would have known X, Y, Z, would you have made the neder? He says, no way. So that's what we're doing is we're making it permitted. However, a Baal Bai B'Yayim has a right to just nullify his wife's neder. So the difference is he has to be that we're playing with the words Zeh Hadavar, Zeh Hadibur, that the Baal has to make sure to say Mufralach and not Mutalach. And again, if the Chacham says Mufralach, also it's not going to work. It has to be Dafka Zeh Hadibur, has to be a perfect Dibur. For Gemara, Beishamai the Lesser Gzer Shava. How far is the Dharm Shleisha Yaitis? Minalu. How does he know that Bechlai could do a first Dharm with Gimel Yaitis? My answer is Nafkalim with the Tanya from the price. It says Vidam and Moshe. It's Moyed Hashem El Bnei Yisrael. And we basically like one Kuf Chafal from an Aleph says Moyed Hashem Nemru. B'Shabbos Bereshis Loy Nemru. And as I Moyed Hashem Nemru, Afaris and Dharm Loy Nemru. So Rabbi Yossi, we're going to explain this price right now. Rabbi Yossi ben Nasan Gamal Halamas Nisi, he learned this price, but Loy Yadil the Frushi couldn't explain it. So Azal Basra der Sheshis Ladai, he went to go look for Sheshis and Adai Veloy Ashkech, couldn't find them. Also Basra Lemachuzah, and he found them Mechuzah Ashkech. I'm like, what are we saying? Moyed Hashem Nemru. Shabbos Bereshis Loy Nemra. And then Rav Sheshis answered him, Amalei, Moyed Hashem Tzrichin Kiddush Bezdin. The Hainu, regarding in those days we didn't have a calendar, a set calendar, so the only way to make Yom Tov is relying on Kiddush Bezdin. However, Shabbos Bereshis, Shabbos is the seventh day of the week. Automatically, Eina Tzricha Kiddush Bezdin. Sal Kedai Techamina Hoyluk Sivik Abi Mayadis Tiboy Kiddush Bezdin. Kamadis, Kamash Malon. That it's automatic. My Moyed Hashem Nemru. What is the next chiluk of the price? It says Moyed Hashem Nemru. One Kuf Chaf Aleph Amad Aleph in the middle of the Amud. My Moyed Hashem Nemru. Hafaris Nedarim Loy Nemru. Moyed Hashem Tzrichim Mumchem. Hafaris Nedarim Einoy Tzrichim Mumchem. This is the kash we asked earlier about Rosh Matiksif. We're talking about when it says Rosh Matos, it's good enough if he's a Yachid. Omer Rav Chizda Tanan also. We have a brayso that says as Omer Rav Shimon Gamliel Yamim Tovim LiYisrael Ki Chamisha Asa B'Av Chayim Kippurim Shebahan B'nai Yerushalayim on Yom Kippur there were Yitzis B'Kli Lavan Sheulin. They borrowed it like Rishbam says. Even if someone had, he made sure to borrow like that. No, if you'd be embarrassed, you'll vayish. It's me, she'ain like. So, you can understand it's a holy day, and therefore they went out, try to get married. What's the Yom of Tubav? Mai Amar Rav Yudah Mishmuel Yom Shehutru Shvatim Lav Ezeh Bezeh. That was the day. Tubav was the day that we said that's it. That was the day that we said, Shepasak Oisei Dar Shabaya Aretz. That dar, when we had the dar, we said Dafka Dar, Zehadavar. Why? Because my Darish. Zehadavar Davar Zeli Elenoyegel Dar Zen. That happened on Tu B'Av. Rabbi, now we're going to give all different Mahalchim. And the Rishbam says that Kol Hanacham Eroi Loi Pligi. Elamar, each one had other things that they learned also happened in Tu B'Av. Rabbi Chaner Rabbi Chani Yom Shehuta Shevet Binyamin after the Givas Binyamin Love B'Kal. The Chesiv says in the pasuk for Ish Yisrael everyone said Nishba B'Mitzvah Lemar Ish Mimenu Lo Yitim Bita Binyamin. No one's going to give their wives, their daughters to the Shevet Binyamin Leisha. So my Darish, what do they learn? How do they know Dafka then? Mimenu, however, V'Loi Mibanenu. So therefore they said it was that day that it stopped. It was Tubav that was it, and they were able to continue going marry Shevet Binyamin. Rav Dimi, Rav Yosef, Amar, Rav Nachman, Yaim Shecholu by Mesa Midbar, like the Rishbam says from a Medrash and Eicha, that every Tisha B'Av they would all dig a cave and they'd all go in, and every year 15,000 didn't wake up. And one year everyone got up. They said, "Oh, maybe we're making a wrong cheshbon." So they waited until the moon was full, Tu B'Av, and that was the day they realized they were right on the track, and it was Mem Shana. No, Mamar. Ad sheloi chalu mesa midbar lo haya wan kuf chaf aleph on Bais lo haya diba Moshe pel peh kivat chila. However, he was able to. The Rashbam says, if he needed to speak, he would speak through the Urim Metumim v'chulei. Scheiner says, "Vayika shetam kolan shemacham elamos meker v'amam v'samach levei dab Hashem Eli leimar." The Eli haya dibor, and it should have said Vayomer Hashem Eli. Ula Amar, Ula wants to say Yom Shebita by Hashia ben Nun the Hashia ben Ela Pardasos, that soldiers blocking Shahishi Ravam Ladrachim Shalai Ali Yisrael Regal. So that day was too bad they stopped it. Ram Masna Yom Shanasna Aruge Beita Lakvura. The Amar of Masna Isa Yom Shanasna Aruge Beita Lakvura. We say mentioning the fourth bracha. Tiknu be Avna Hatoiv Ametiv Hatoiv the what, that their bodies, it was a miracle that happened that it didn't ratchelay Srichu. Vahametiv Shanasnu Lakvura. Rather, Rabbi Yosef Damitavayu, Yom Shepoiskin by Melichritz Eitzim Lamaracha, Tubav is ready, gets to summer, we stop cutting. Tanya Belaza Godalim Akimit Shegich Hamisha Savav, once Tubav comes in, Tasha Keicha Shachama, the sun becomes weak. Velaya Karson Eitzim Lamaracha, because you need a strong sun to dry out. Menashe Vikarale, they would call it Yom Tavamagol, the day that the axe breaks. Mekama Elach. Now that the nights are getting long, then Maisiv Yaisif, a person should learn Kihein Chayenu. Now that the nights are long, we should take the opportunity to learn. Shein and Maisif Yosef. What's it mean, my Yosef? Wow, Tani Rav Yosef. Tikvar Ime, his mother's going to bury him. Someone who takes these winter nights, stam to do batolo. Scary stuff it says, his mother's going to bury him. Tani Rabbanah. Shiva Koflus Kolayim Kulay. Misushalach Ra'adam. Shem Ra Misushalach. Yaakov Ra. Shem Amram Ros. Yaakov Achish Shaluni Ros. Amram Elio Ros. Achish Shaluni Vadayin Kayim. Frek tomorrow. Va'achish Shaluni Ros. Amram V'ksev Eloi Noisim Am Ish. Kim Kolabin Yefuna B'Yeshua Benon. And the Gemara answers, Mavuna Le Nixak Zera Shifta Shel Levi. And he was Chelik Levi. The Chsev Midrash say Yivlu V'Greichem all your carcasses V'Chop Kodechem L'Chom Misparchem. That was me ben esim shonim emal mi shepkudim ben esim yatsa shifter shalevi, that they were from 30 shepkudim ben shleishim. That's when they went to do levit. Umishar shvatim loy ayil frek tomorrow. You're going to tell me other shvatim now. Vatan yar ben ashe mach ben ashe noldu mi Yaakov veloy mesa shenichnusu l'eretz Yisrael shenema Yaakov mem anshe ay k'shleishim mishisha ish. And what's the mean b'shleishim mishisha? V'tanya shleishim mishisha mamish. Rabbi Yehuda says mamish 36 people. Different Rabbi Yehuda. And Amar ben Chaim chi nema shleishim v'shisha. Veloy nema ela kishleishim. Now 36 is somewhat of a random number. It's not a roundabout number. Shleishim Shishal is a Yar ben Menashe, Sheshalka Karuba Shel Sanhedrin. We all know Rav Sanhedrin. He's at least 36. Ela Amar Rav Yaakov. Ela Amar Rav Yaakov Nixer Gzeir Loya Pachois mi ben Esrim. Vela Yesrim ben Shishim. Loya Pachos. Someone who's under 20 ben Esrim. Chsim ben Esrim Shana v'Mal. And someone who's older 60. Vela Yesrim ben Shishim. Gomar Umalo Malo be'Erichin. Just like we know by Erichin Dafka. Someone under 20, someone over the 60, even though the Rashbam does say they didn't have the exact same Shavuos, but since they were different than 20 to 60, we made a Gzer Shavah. Malahal and Yesem and Shishim Kepachos Mechaf, Afkan, Yesem and Shishim Kepachos Biben Esrim. Iboilu. Now we're going to have a Shiloh when we said Eretz Yisrael. How is Eretz Yisrael divided? It was divided to 12 Chalakim. Was it divided Eretz Yisrael is Shvatim Ifluk? Every Shevet got their own, doesn't make a difference how big or small the Shevet was. Every person in Klai Yisrael got a little chelik in the land. Tashma 1 Kuf Chav Beis Amud Aleph. It says in the pasuk, Bein Rav L'Ma'at. It said Apia Gairul Tichalak Aretz, and we're saying Bein Rav L'Ma'at. Now, for Gemara, if you're going to tell me that every single person got a chelik, what's Rav L'Ma'at? If it goes by Shvatim, some Shvatim we're bigger than the others. Tanya, we have a right that says, I see Eretz Yisrael shenis chalkol shleisha aser shvatim. So it clearly says shvatim, and therefore we answer the question. The Shvan does throw in, why do we need to say this? I already learned Ben Rav Lamat. We're going to say because you could learn Rav Lamat differently. We're going to see in a moment. So Zok Gemara, Tanya, see Eretz Yisrael shebet tischalek 1 Kuf Chav Beis Amud Aleph, the top of the Amud. Shetischalek shleisha shvatim shebetchila lo nischalka elu shneimos shvatim. First, in the beginning, it was only dafka 12 shvatim. V'loi nischalka ela bekesef. We're going to see with money. Shenem ben Rav L'Ma'at. We're going to see a little more exactly how the kesef, the hamin is. Someone who had a nicer chelik had to pay the difference. For example, you got zibayris. The person that got idios had to pay the difference because everyone's idios. Amr Yehuda, like it says, Sab Yehuda, son Yehuda's word, Shaveh Chamesh. Saim Begol. That's how you see. Idias and Zibaris is different. V'lein is Chalko, the Begairol. And the way it's always divided was with the Gairol. Shenamar says, Ach Begairol. V'lein is Chalko, Ela Be'urim V'tumim. Shenamar Pia Gairol. So Ketzad, how would they divide Eretz Yisrael? Elazar, Meluba Shur V'tumim. V'yeshuv v'chayisol the Lefanav, and they had these boxes, the kalfishol shvatim, that a box with all the names of the shvatim, the kapishol tchumim, and it had to be dafka, very important point, it had to be dafka, 2 boxes, one is shvatim, and one also tchumim. Why can you say, oh, Reuven, now it's Reuven's turn, so let's see where Reuven's going to get it. The answer is, and then it will be l'char a girl, it says, ach begirl, you have to do every single chelik of dividing needs to be a girl. So even saying, who are we going to decide now, is the girl. Reuven and Shimon, so Reuven, and what's his tchum? Okay, Shenamar. So what happened was they had a kalpishal shvatim, a kalpishal tchum munach lefanav. V'ayim mechavim beruach hakodesh. V'ayim zvula and oile. Zvula is going to come now. Tchum akum oile imoy. Tar, if you'd grab the box with kalpishal shvatim, all of the other zvula. Tar bekalpishal tchum, all of the other tchum akoy. V'chayim mechavim beruach hakodesh. He went through this. V'ayim naftali oile. V'tchum genis oile imoy. Tar bekalpishal shvatim, all of the other naftali. Torah bekalfi shel tchumim va'ala biyadei tchum ganesa v'chayin kol shevet v'loich kechaluka shel oilam azeh kechaluka shel oilam haba ha'oilam azeh adam yesh lo. What do we have? Sad lavin ein lo sad pardes. Sad pardes ein lo sad lavin oilam haba. What's going to happen? Oilam haba ein lecha kol echad ve'echad she'elam b'hai has a mountain b'shiflo ve'emek shenem like it says shar Reuven echad shar Yehuda echad and shar Levi echad. Each one's going to have mashiach zeh yesh lezeh. And a Kadosh Baruch Hu mechalikim ba'atzma shenamar, like it says ve'eila mechalkusam noum Hashem. The Rebbeinu Shalom himself is going to be the one who's going to give out the portions. Now, Ktani Mia, what's it clearly say? This is what we're bringing this whole length. Shebetchila and Eschalkel l'shnei masar shvatim. Shma mi know that what l'shvatim iflug. Mi know we clearly see that it was dafka for the shvatim. Shma mi know. Amemar. I see there it's a shal shetischalek l'shleisha asar shvatim. So idach laman, who's going to get that extra chelik? Amar Rav Chizda, it's going to go l'nasi d'chseva oived ha'ir, which is the nasi. He's the reish. This is what it's saying, that the nasi is going to get it. The oived ir yavdu mikol shifti Yisrael. Amar Rav Papa Labai Ema maybe just got workers. Mechatesi got a chelik in the land. Ema runga ba'amo. It says light sakadaitik. The chseva says v'hanaisel l'nasi mizem is going to get chalakim. Besides. The Trumas HaKadosh Achuz is here. V'lein eschalka el l'ksafin, we divide the line of l'ksafin, shenem ben rav lamat. So lamai, ilema, you're going to tell me, l'shufta v'sanya, dahainu, poor and good quality portions. For Ektamar, what? Atu b'shetfani haskinon. We're not talking about silly people. Ela l'kroiva, the what? You're going to take zibayis, I'm going to take idias? I also want idias. Ela l'kroiva v'chaika. Rather, whoever was further away from the land, from Yerushalayim, whoever was further away, you had to pay with money ketanoi. There, Belezer, Aimer, Bechsafim, Helua, Ribshu, Aimer, depends how they paid it, Bekarkalu, either give more land or by pain. Veloin is Chalkan, the way we divide Ela Begarl, Shenema, Ach Begarl. Tana, Ach Begarl, Yatsu, Yeshua V'Kelev, except Yeshua V'Kelev, they didn't have to get over the girl. Lamai, Elam, Delay Shakal Klal, you're going to tell me the Bechal didn't get it. Hashta Delav, they do Shakal, like we learned earlier, they got other Chalakim, they do Mivah, you're going to tell us. Ela Shalai, not Lo Begarl, Ela, Al Pi Hashem. Yeshua, how do we know the Chesiva says? Al Pi Hashem, Nasnu Light. It's the Ir Shashal. It's Timna, Serach, Bahar, Ephraim. So now that we mentioned the word Serach, Siv, one Kuf, Chav Beis, Amar Beis, Siv, Serach, in Yeshua, V'chsiv, Cheres, in Shoftim. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Betchila, the Perasek, Cheres. The Ayin before Yeshua came was mamish dried, it was very bad. Well, the Basayif was delicious, Perasek, Masrichin, in a way, in a good way, that it was juicy and therefore would get eventually spoiled. V'yikadam the other way, Betchila, Masrichin. Well, Basayif, Cheres, you're able to store it for a very long time. Call it the chsivi. No, call it b'schevren kashadibi Moshe v'yersh misham shleisha b'nei anak. Frek tomorrow says chevron ir miklat havi. Chevron was an ir miklat, and if it was ir miklat, then it was shevet Levi's. Amabaya, no, we're talking about parvaha, which means the kfarim and the sadais outside the city. The chsivi sada ir v'schetzera nasnu l'kala ben yifuna v'achuzasai for his legacy. We're on the Mishnah on Kufchav Bais Amid Bais. Echad haben ve'echad abas benachlo, whether a son and a daughter both got benachlo, elo shahaben noito pi shnayim. We're going to explain the Gemara very well exactly what's it mean, echad haben ve'echad abas, and then it says el shahaben noito pi shnayim b'nichse'av. However, ve'eino noito pi shnayim, that a ban, regarding the bechor, he doesn't get b'nichse'av when his mother dies. V'habonis, however, midaraisa bonis don't get anything. But they get from the ksuba nizainis menichse hav, ve'ein nizainis, however, they don't get menichse aim, that if the mother dies, the girls, until they get to a certain age, they're not going to get nizainis. Aktumar. My echad haben, the echad habas lanachal. If you're going to tell me that what? If you want to tell me that they're equal, hatnan. This is what we started the parak with. That a ben is kaidin labas. Again, kol yaitzer echsho ben kaidin labas. So what in the world are we talking about when the Mishnah says echad haben, the echad habas is ben achla? So the simin nafsham. We're going to see all different for all the different names. Amar Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak, hachikam. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Echad haben, the echad habas, whether the son or a daughter, Nightland in a scenario where there's no sons, Nightland beroi kebemuchzuk. And the chiddush in the Mishnah is going to be tell us that even a girl, b'makim shein ben, she's also going to get a chelik, like a muchzuk. Hanami tinin for tomorrow. We learned that's from the Mishnah b'nei slavcha. So we started the shiur with that b'nei slavcha night l'shleishach halakim and achla chelik avin shiyaya yaitz mitzrayim. The chalkam achim b'nechse chayfers. You clearly see even in a case where there's no sons, the daughter's yarish just like that. That's one kasha. My Ella. We started the Mishnah with what? Echad haben, ve'echad habas, and then we jump Ella nichseim nichseav. We're talking about a son and a daughter. What does it mean? Ella shaben noitel. Ella amar Rav Papa says hachikamar. Echad haben ve'echad habas noitlem chelek b'chayra. The chiddush is that in a scenario where there's no, which means a bas ben is also going to get a chelek b'chayra. Namitanina, we already learned this. From another catch you still have is how you defining echad haben and echad habas to nichseav nichseim. Same catch we read earlier. A third malach we're going to try to say hachikamer echad ben abanim the echad bas ben abanas. Now what? If you have a son or a daughter, when you have a bunch of sons, we're going to learn that if a person wants, he could say, I want dafka this son to get all my Yerusha. The halach is we're going to see a certain shita that it's going to work. Like the cheetahs Rabbi Yechon and Breika has to be dafka son. You can't say a random neighbor is going to be Yerush because the master must cause a b'dayra. Haktad for the mark. Tani lekamon Rabbi Yechon and Breika. Amisha rali yarsha dvar kayamim. Dafka son is a roi. Amisha ain't a roi. A neighbor liyarsha ain't dvar kayamim. The cheetah you're going to tell us. You know why our Mishnah says it? Because Sasam la Rabbi Yechon and Breika to tell us. Oh, our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yechon ben Breika. For tomorrow. That can't be. It's a stam achakach machlekes because we're going to learn this later. Stam achakach machlekes. This stam achakach machlekes ain't a lachakah stam. Then why in the world would our Mishnah say it? Right, my Ella my Baravashi, which is the final mahalach chachikama. Echad haben ve'echad habas shavin b'nichse ha'ein u'b'nichse ha'av. They're both shavin. Elo shaben noitul b'shnayim b'nichse ha'av. Regarding Yerusha, regarding bechar noitul b'shnayim ve'ein noitul b'shnayim b'nichse. Taner Rabbanan, we all know it says in the Torah that a bechar gets double. Losses like pishnayim. The shaila is pishnayim ke'echad. Atoim and pishnayim ke'echad, which means to say is when you have Reuven and Shimon, two brothers. Reuven's the bechar. There's no shaila about it. He's going to end up with what? 2/3 of the whole Yerusha because it's 2 out of 3. There's only 2 boys. Maybe even a scenario where there's 5 brothers. First, the bechar gets 2/3 in every scenario. He's always going to get double of everybody else altogether. Mar tries to say one kufchav gimel aman aleph chalkum echad v'chalkum chamisha. That what? Just like ma chalkum echad, he's going to get double. He's going to get pishnayim ke'echad. He's going to end up with 2/3. Av chalkum chamisha, he should get 2/3. Pishnayim ke'echad. So Mar says no. They go the opposite argument. Klach l'derech zu. One kufchav gimel aman aleph. Ay klach l'derech zu. Chalkum echad v'chalkum hey. Ma chalkum echad pishnayim b'chol nechasim. Av chalkum hey pishnayim b'chol nechasim. Sorry, the first malach is to say just like over there, he only gets an extra portion. So too when there's 5 brothers letting get only extra portion. And we're saying say the opposite argument. When it's chalkum hey, ma chalkum echad, he's going to get 2/3 of chalkum hey, pishnayim b'chol nechasim. Tamalaymar says in the pasuk v'haya b'yayim. This whole pasuk Dr. Ishbam is extra. V'haya b'yayim echila is banav. Why is the Torah saying that? Torah rips a nachla tzalachin to tell us that they also have a schos, and therefore it's going to bechar is only going to get 1 extra portion. That what the elach aladon. Koloshin achron elo koloshin rishon. We're going to have other psukim. The Gemara is going to question why we need more psukim. Ubnei Ruvain bechar Yisrael kihu bechar v'chalule yitzu ave because he was mechal his father's bed. Nasna becharasav ne Yosef ben Yisrael v'loy l'syachesh la bechayra. We're going to have another pasuk. Kihu the gav ba'achiv ul and again v'lenagin imenu. He was the world of Bechayr Yosef. So now Bechayr Yosef and now Bechayr Dairis. Ma Bechayr Mula Yosef was a Pishnaim Keach. He only got double. Bechayr Mula Dairis Pishnaim Keach. Vaymer. Another pasuk. I'm going to give you one extra portion. Your brother Shalakachti Miyada Mayri Becharbi with the sword of Vikashti with the bow and arrow. Like it says in the pasuk, Kilai Vikashti Aftach. I don't trust. I don't rely on my bow. Vicharbi Loisi Scheiner. My sword is not going to help me. Vicharvi Zu Tvila and Kashi Zu Bekasha. So Frektimar, if we look, we brought multiple psukim. My vaymer, why do we need extra psukim? The chitim, you're going to tell me, hi, lechadar yechanim reikud asa. The chiddush is that a person could tell us, oh, I want dafka this son to be Irish, everything. Tashma, b'nei Ruvain, bechar. We're learning from the bechar Yisrael. The chitim, you're going to tell us you can't learn. It's a different bechayra, mebecharasa like Amrina Tashma. Veha bechar the Yosef to tell us there's no difference. The chitim Yosef, gufei mimayde b'shnayim kechadav. How do you know bechlal Yosef? Tashma, it says you only got one extra portion. And nisan lechem shechem echad alech echad. Maybe just got one little portion, one little dekala. Amalei. Alecha Makra says in the pasuk, Ephraim, Menashe, Cheruv, and Shimon, Yuli, the Hainu, they're going to be against two Shvatim. Very clear that they got two complete separate portions. Now we're going to say a very famous Agatha Gemara. What did Yaakov see that he gave away the Bechor from Reuven? Nasal Yosef. In fact, tomorrow, my Ra says in the pasuk, because he's the father's bed. Why Dafka did he give it to Yosef? And then the Gemara says, tries to give an answer. Person brings an orphan to his house. Later on in life, the Yassim becomes very wealthy. The Amar, what's he say? He gives all he wants to let the Bais enjoy him. Enjoy it, enjoy the payers of him. Amar Levi, Lav Dechat Ruvain. He wouldn't give him anything. The Hainu, it's very easy to give someone a present. Imagine a person gives over to you, comes over to you, and gives you a nice shiny matana. You take your matana and you give it to someone that you want to give him a little karsatayf. Now you're going to give him a little present. You're not going to go on your own and go buy him something special. The Bechar should have came into Rachel. The Chsev says, Elo told this Yaakov is Yosef, which is Rachel's son. We all know this is one of the most famous Gemaras. So what's it mean? The Chsev says in the pasuk, that the eyes of Leah were rachos, were soft, were tender. Zok the Gemara, my rachas, ilay my rachas mam should tell us that it was soft. After begnus behema tameile dibar kasa. We all know, very famous. The Gemara only in the Chumash adds another 8 letters really to tell us behema she'einenu tahira. It doesn't say the words tamei, which is only 5. That the Hainu presents were long, that Hainu the continued generations, even though we know by Yosef, Osa, Rachel, Yosef was a king, but it never continued. Mashenkin Leah, Rashi says, Levi Yatzim Imenu, that we have Kahanim and Leviim, V'chulei. Rav Amar, no, La'olam Rachis Mamish. However, like Gnai Hula, don't learn it as a Gnai. Elo Shvach Hula. Sha'isa Shemasa Parshas Drachim, she would go sit by the crossroads in here. B'nei Adam Sheyayimrim. Shnei Banim Yeshel Rivka, that there's Esav in this Yaakov. Shtei Banais Yeshel Love in this Rachel. This was the hack on the block. That the G'dayla is the Gadol, and Viktana Lekatan. That Rachel is going to end up with Yaakov, because he's the Katan to the Ktana, and Leah is going to end up with Esav. The Haisa Yeshevis, after she heard this hack, she would ask, Parshas Drachim Mishalas, Gadol Ma'maisa, what's going to be with my future chassid? They would answer, Ishrahu, he's an evil person, and last in Brias. What about Katan? Ma'maisa Vishtam Yeshiv Alim, he sits and learns Taida. She started crying out, she nishuri saying now from the tears that were coming out. All the eyebrows fell out. What's snua? My snua. Snua Leah. Elim again. Snua mamish. Efshur begnus behemoth. Tmei diba kasuf. Gnus adim and diba kasuf. That doesn't make sense. Elara kadesh baruchu. Shesenuin maisa isa b'fanah. So what happened? Vayiftach es rachma. The hainu she got the schos of the bechayr. Vayiftach es rachma. My tznius haisabah Rachel. What was the tznius of Rachel? That was Leah. What about Rachel? That he's his father's brother. He's the son of the father's sister. Yaakov asked Rachel, "You going to marry me?" However, you should be very careful. My father, my father's a big Ramai. He's not going to let you, because the minig was the gadol to the gdaila. Amalei Myra Muse. Amrali, what's the Ramoyim over here? Achsa the Kashimanoi. I have an older sister, but I also know how to deal with such people. Frag the Mar right away. Amrali, Umi Charlotte Tzadika Lisagriber Musa. Could a tzaddik suddenly start deceiving people? The Mar says, Im Navar, if a person's honest, Titavra. Be honest with him. Stumble, knock him down. So what did Yaakov do? Masala Simani, we gave him the Simon, and we all know Kikamayla. Leah, the mice when he married Leah, Savra Hashta Michsava. Rachel said, he's going to ask for the Simonim, and she's not going to know it. So she gave over the Simonim. He biker only in the morning. You have to say that maybe the voices were similar enough that when he gave the Simonim, he was quite confident. Elamai, he was relying on the Simonim in his head. Okay, Elamai was quite confident that it's Rachel and not Leah. From a place where if you look in the Psukim, it clearly says Kol HaNefesh Mitzrayim, it clearly says 70. However, if you go through the names, Dina had a twin, the S. We're learning from the S to tell us that the S Dina Bita, that Dina had a twin. The also says the S. Binyamin Acha Ben Imai. So on Kuf Chav Gimel Amid Bais, Amar Margolius Haisa Biyadi. The Rashbam says, Betzim had a really different malach. I was Mikar Lechadudi boy. He knew he was going to really ask him that. He wanted to, sharpen his brain a little. Who is this Zuyechevet? Therefore, it's not counted. Why? Because she wasn't in the Velt yet. Shayrasa Bederech, Reledasa Bein Achaymais. Like it says in the Pasuk, Shenemar. Hashe Yalda Isel Levi Mitzrayim LeDasa Mitzrayim and Erasa Mitzrayim. Ba'Miner Chabam Shmuel Ben Achneni Ksef says Vayikasher Yalda Rachel is Yosef. Suddenly, when Rachel had Yosef, then what? That's when he wanted to go back. Only then he wanted to go back. LeBeis Aviv. Yaakov wanted to go back to Beis Aviv. Frakdamar Ma'ishna suddenly Kisyal Yosef. Suddenly then he wanted to go back to Beis Aviv. Amalei Ra Yaakov Vinu Shein Zar Shel Esav Nimsar. Elabiad Zar Shel Yosef. Shenemar says V'Haisa Beis Yaakov Eish. Beis Yaakov is going to be a fire. Beis Yosef is going to be Lahav, is going to be a flame. Beis Esav Lakashi is going to destroy him like straw. Frakdamar, you're telling me Dafka B'nei Yosef Esrei says in the pasuk by Molek. We're talking about it says in the pasuk as follows: Vayikem David Ma'aneshav ad Erev LeMechrasam Veloy Nimlat Mahem Ish Ki Amar Meis V'Chulei. And the Seir says Vayakem David Ma'aneshav from the twilight mamish till the next day. And there we're clearly talking about David was what? David was from Shevet Yehuda and not from Yosef. So what are we telling us that what? Amalek is not going to be with Yosef. We see by the Mechamas Amalek was with who? With Shevet Yehuda. Amalei, that Krich Nevi, Krich Ksuv. Whoever taught you Nevi'im didn't teach you Ksuv. The Chsev says in the pasuk, Belachtei mamish this pasuk, Belachtei Tziklag Nafla Alaf from who? Mimenashe, which is Yosef. Says Adnoch v'Yezavad v'Yadiel Michal v'Yezavad v'Liu v'Tzilasi Rashi Alaf v'Mashem Menashe. Again, clearly saving Menashe. Meser Yosef says Umehan. Says from there, Bnei Shimon, from the sons of Shimon. Hochalai Seir Nashim Chamesh Ma'is. Also says Lataya Unarya Urefaya Vuzil Bnei Yishi B'Reisham. So you there clearly see it was also Bnei Shimon. And Maran says Amar Rabbi Rashila Yishi no Yishi Bnei Menashe. Asi only then. When they had Bnei Menashe that Shevet Yosef to help him, only then they were able to minatzeach. The Chsev, like it says, Bnei Menashe Chayfer v'Yishi. It's interesting. You don't really find such a pasuk. They bring it down over here on the side that there is no such a pasuk of Bnei Menashe Chayfer v'Yishi Ayin Sham. Taner Rabban HaBechor Noito Pishnai. The Bechor gets double. We all know this. We have a Bechor Bizroya Uvelachayim Uvekeva. With the foreleg, with the chaim, with the jaw, with the keva, it's a chelik of the system, the digestive system. Uvi mukdashin, also with mukdash, the bechar gets double. Ubi shvach, shishavchu nechasim la'achar misas aviyim. So ketzah. Heniach lem aviyin para muchkeres. Muchkeres means Dr. Shbam davar that the hainu they split the pot. I sign it to you, co-sign it. Basically, you go and make profits, and we split it to muchkeres or set price biyad acher. Because they didn't do anything. Everything's automatically, so we consider them muchzik. But if they invested, they built a house, another crumb. So, what's the case of this raya? Hi, Zroy Chaim that came a hechidam. Manavshach. When the father already has it, we're talking about a father who's a kohen. Pshita, it's his. He's a muchzik. My answer is we're talking about his friends, always pledge, they always give it to him. When they shechted it, they said, I'm giving it to you, and he was alive. Then he died. He had a heart attack. Even though it wasn't separated yet. So that's how we understand this Roy L'chaim. What about the Mikdashim? Lav Didaininu, it's not his. My answer is we're talking about Bekachim Kalim. We're talking about something like Shlomim. Kachim, which is Ayil Chatas V'chulei in Asham. There, in a Chanami, we're going to see in a second, basically, the Shita is that it's a mum and bailam. The Kachim Kalim Shlomim is a mum and bailam. Dafka when it's alive. The Tanya Mala Bashem. When a person's kichish by midah, he's chayev karen chaimish v'asham. The rabbis kachim kalim shehein mamen bailim divrei Rabbi Yaisi Haglilis. In such a case, where we're talking about kachim kalim, which is bechayim, dafka bechayim. Shitas Rabbi Yaisi Haglili. The scenario is talking about that case of mukdashin. That's why it's considered a muchzik. In Yetz Hashem, we're going to continue to pick up from the bottom next week of Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Bais.